Okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for attending here today. I'm Representative Joe Hackett from the 161st District, located in Delaware County. We're here today to introduce an important piece of legislation strengthening the rights of sexual assault victims. I'm pleased to have with me today a bipartisan group of members, along with the support of the Pennsylvania Coalition Against Rape. You know, sexual assault takes on many forms, including rape or attempted rape, as well as an unwanted sexual contact. Sexual assault can happen to anyone, any age, race, gender, or economic background. Attackers may be strangers, acquaintances, and sometimes even a family member. You know, I think it's fair to say today that no one enjoys talking about sexual assault, more specifically, the act of rape. According to the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, 1 in 6 women in the United States have been the victim of rape or an attempted rape. And that's using a rather tight definition of that term, not including variations of assault that victims can also experience. You know, whether it's date rape, a stranger attack, or a situation in which the woman does not remember the assault, the damage can be profound. When a victim of rape chooses to give birth to a child conceived from that attack, they find that the legal door is left wide open for their re-victimization. It sounds unthinkable, but as the current law states, the victim is forced to spend her own precious resources to defend herself once again from that rapist. That's why my colleagues, Representative Sherelle Parker and Representative Mike Schlossberg, and I, and my good friend Angel Cruz, with the grateful input from the Pennsylvania Coalition Against Rape, developed our legislation, which will be numbered House Bill 410. Our proposed legislation will give the victim more power over determining whether custody is granted to that rapist. House Bill 410 would prohibit the court from granting the rapist any form of custody if the victim objects. The court can overrule the victim's objection if the child is of suitable age and the court determines that it is in the child's best interest. House Bill 410 would also require the convicted rapist to pay child support, even if their parental rights are terminated. I would now like to introduce my colleagues from Philadelphia. I think Representative Sherelle Parker is tied up on the turnpike, but here with me.
Good timing.
And there she is, drum roll. And my good friend Mike Schlossberg are here today for some comments and to explain, further about the bill.
Sherelle knows how to make an entrance.
Sherelle, do you want me to give you a little bit of time, or would you like your fellow?
When we let Slosh, I have a 2.5-year-old, and we're gonna let me catch my breath from him. So,
Go ahead.
Thank you, Joe. And Sherelle, I have a 3.5 and 2-year-old. I feel your pain. Good morning, everybody, and thank you to Representative Hackett, Representative Parker, and Representative Cruz. This was a bipartisan effort. We began it late last year, and unfortunately, we ran out of time. A bill like this really is the definition of easy and no-brainer. No state should ever let a rape victim be victimized over and over again for making the very brave and difficult decision to have a child that was conceived from that rape. Now, I have my own separate legislation, which hopefully won't be necessary, because we'd like to fold it in to this omnibus rape victims protection bill. Last year, in the course of doing some research, we came to a pretty horrifying conclusion. If a woman is raped, impregnated, and has a baby in Pennsylvania, she can do one of two things. She can either sue to have that rapist's child custody rights revoked, or she can sue the rapist for financial support. But she can't do both of those things at the same time. So if you have a woman who's in a position where she needs financial support in order to support herself and a child that was conceived from a rape, that rapist can re-victimize their victim by saying, okay, we can have that conversation, but I'm going to sue you for child custody. So you could put a victim of rape in a position where they have to see their rapist over and over again in order for the rape victim to have enough money to survive. This is untenable. It's unconscionable. Saying that we are in favor of protecting rape victims isn't an overwhelmingly controversial statement. It isn't something that I think anybody realistically can have a problem with. And what this bill will do is make rape victims safer and protect them from being victimized over and over again and from having a child be used as the weapon for that victimization. Representative Parker, if you've caught your breath, I'd like to turn it over to you.
thank you, my dear.
Thank you, ma'am.
You can take your binder.
Nope, I'll take that.
Okay,
There you
all righty. Let me again say good morning to each of you. I want to echo the words spoken by my colleagues, to Rep. Schlossberg, Rep. Cruz, who is not present but was supportive of this effort. But I want to say to my colleague on the other side of the aisle, let me thank you for your leadership, because we are working in a bipartisan manner to get this done. But Rep. Hackett, had you not committed to move in this legislation, given the political realities associated with the chamber that we are functioning in, I don't know whether or not we would have great hope in believing that this could actually become a reality. And I needed to say thank you to you for the record for your leadership on this issue. Let me just start with the words of some women who have had, unfortunately, to face the traumatizing experience of rape. I was raped in North Carolina, and the rapist won joint custody. Torment does not come close to describe what I live. The courts have not only tied and bound me to a rapist, but also the innocent child that was conceived by violence. The violence has earned him even more control over my life. Next, I was raped, and the rapist has been taking me to court for 5 years for the right to see our son. I am being tormented to death. Last comment. In 2010, my 14-year-old daughter became pregnant as a result of rape. After a 2-year trial, her rapist was acquitted, publicly maintained his innocence, and sued for visitation. To protect my 16-year-old daughter and her 2-year-old child, I waged a $60,000 public battle, and we are in essence broke. Those were 3 real-life examples from women who have been traumatized by the life-altering experience of rape. I want to note for the record that while I am proud to stand with my colleagues to support this common sense legislation, the fact of the matter is that common sense doesn't always prevail in General Assemblies. Pennsylvania is not alone in the antiquated laws on the books associated with how we address this issue. In fact, approximately half the states across the nation, including ours, continue to sit back and allow these mothers and their children to be re-victimized, to be blackmailed, and sometimes intimidated through our legal system. Today, as a result of this legislation, it is our hope that we will say, no more to an alleged rapist having the power to use custodial rights as a bargaining chip to buy a victim's silence. No more to a convicted rapist having the power to inflict mental torment on his victim and her child for the rest of their lives. No more to a mother having to relive her assault because she seeks financial assistance to ensure a quality of life for the child she bore. No more to allowing societal assumptions dictate how women should respond when they become pregnant as a result of rape. House Bill 410 once again corrects what the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania has gotten wrong. To my friends and advocates from PCAR who are here, and I see my good friend Diane, we've walked legislation through this General Assembly to get to the governor's desk, and it actually became law. We want to do it again, so we want to organize in a very smart and collective way. We want our advocates agitating on the outside. We want our legislators working hard to gain bipartisan support to move this legislation forward. And we eventually want to get it to Governor Wolf's desk so that he can sign it and we can help people who've been traumatized by rape. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherelle. Thank you very much. Sherelle made me move my binder, so hopefully I can get back to my place here. As
people lose their spots, it's okay.
As we all know, for over 40 years, the Pennsylvania Coalition Against Rape has worked to end sexual violence and has advocated for the rights and needs of sexual assault victims. So joining us here today is Ms. Delilah Rumberg, CEO of the Pennsylvania Coalition Against Rape. Delilah? Thank you.
Good morning. It's my honor to speak on behalf of the rights of sexual assault victims today. The Commonwealth has a proud history of protecting the rights of victims, and today we seek to address an obvious omission around the rights of sexual assault victims who are made pregnant by the rapist and they choose to birth and parent the child. Each year, an estimated 30,000 pregnancies in the United States occur as a result of rape. Many of these victims do not report to the police or seek medical care, but some do. And some of those rapists are convicted. Presently in Pennsylvania, those convicted rapists have parental rights unless the victim gives the child up for adoption. Should she want to raise the child herself, the man who raped her has legal parental rights. Imagine, you will, if you would get these calls, and that's what usually when people are filling at the rope's end, that's when they call the Coalition Against Rape. Here's a call that we received a while back. Delilah, I have done everything I was expected to. I reported the rape. I cooperated with law enforcement. I testified against the rapist. And then I experienced the fear and rage and doubt from people that I thought would support me. I answered the difficult questions about my pregnancy and my absences from work and about my emotional state. And I've just now found out that when he gets out of prison, the judge will hold me in contempt if I refuse him visitation with his child. Tell me this is not true. Tell me this is not true. We've got to change this. So I implore the legislature to take speedy action on this unconscionable situation. Today is the day to change this conversation. No victim of sexual assault who has endured rape, a pregnancy resulting from rape, and the process of the investigation and the prosecution, which often takes more than a year, no victim should then find themselves facing the prospect of having the rapist in their life or the life of their child. I thank the leaders who have joined with me today to shine a light on this inequity in the law and are working to change it. On behalf of the 50 rape crisis centers who serve victims all across Pennsylvania, I ask you to take action to honor the courage of those victims who should have the right to be free from a future with the ominous shadow of the perpetrator following her and her child home. Thank you, and we appreciate your support of this critical issue.
Thank you very much, Delilah, and thank you for all the help that your agency does. In closing remarks, I think we all realize here today that far too often our justice system, punishes criminals but forgets to take care of our victims. So our legislation will ensure that the rape survivors are empowered and their children and families are protected for many years to come. That'll basically conclude our press conference for today. I know Karen Dalton is here, Senior Legal Counsel for the Judiciary Committee, to hear and answer any technical questions. I would also like to thank my colleagues here today that I would name, of course, Representative Sherelle Parker and Mike Schlossberg for their hard work on that over the Christmas holidays, that we were working together on that, and Angel Cruz for putting the work into it. There was a lot of technical work that had to be done on this legislation. Delilah, thank you for coming. I think we had Rep. Cheryl Delosier. Cheryl, thank you very much in the back. Doyle Heffley, Peter Schweier, Mark Rossi, Jamie Santorum, and Leslie Acosta. Thank you all so much for coming out and sharing, some thoughts. Who else is here? Rep. Parker. Oh, Rep. Parker. I'm sorry, my buddy from the Irvis Building. Thank you. Thank you. Please, if you want to jump up front here, if anybody else would like to have some comments, you're welcome to do so. But thank you all for sharing today, and thanks for coming out and covering the story. We believe this legislation is definitely very important to those victims in Pennsylvania, but more importantly, just how we're working in a bipartisan manner. So thank you very much. And if there's any questions from the audience, Karen, if you have some technical stuff about the bill, or
somebody mentioned you just ran out of time last session. Do you have any reason to believe that there would be anything that would stop this from getting to the governor's desk in this session?
just one thing that we started earlier this time than last time.
Right. Is there any reason why it wouldn't get to the governor's desk?
I don't know any reason why it wouldn't be on the governor's desk sooner than later. Yes, ma'am.
Just about one of the comments from PCAR, I just wanted to ask what the source is for the estimate that 30,000 pregnancies result from rape each year.
I will get that to you if you give me your card. They didn't write the source there, but that's the one that we typically use from our National Resource Center that has done the data on that. We don't have it for Pennsylvania, but that's the national average, and I'll get that to you if you give me your card as soon as we finish.
Again, why did it take until now to address what seems to be an obvious, dreadful situation in Pennsylvania law?
That's a great question. I know how long I've been in office, and these folks have been in office. There's just so many issues out there that we're trying to address on a daily basis. The next phone call you get becomes a more important issue than the one before it.
Was there a case or something recently that brought this to light?
There was no case that the only thing that brought it to my attention was the advocates for the victims of rape.
I first discovered, to be perfectly honest, I first discovered this issue about 6 months into my first term because of a CNN story. I mean, it was just one of those things that you come across. It's one of the many bizarre loopholes in Pennsylvania law. I think it's safe to say that, at least in terms of the custody victim part, it wasn't an intentional right. It's just you have two laws that are written separately, parental rights and financial support, and the two didn't intersect. I've referred to it as a loophole, and I think it's an accidental one that we need to remedy, obviously.
And Slasa, if I can add, because I want to give a real life sort of example of the fact that this is not abnormal. With the legislation that you heard me reference earlier that we worked on, again in a bipartisan manner, that was with Representative Kate Harper, it was allowing for the use of experts to testify in cases of sexual assault. I've only been here for 10 years, so I just found my way to the bathroom, but Representative Harper and I had worked on this legislation for 7 of the 10 years that I had been here. It was unfortunate that it did take the Sandusky case to make the issue of experts testifying about why victims would delay reporting, why they wouldn't, initially just immediately go to the hospital or immediately report to law enforcement. And it became law. Governor Corbett signed it. It got through the legislative process, but unfortunately it took 6 to 7 years to get it done. So representatives, right, this is totally not abnormal. Our laws on the books regarding rape, a lot of them, and not just this issue, but several, are really antiquated and outdated.
Thank you. Any other questions? In the far back.
There's been a lot of talk about domestic violence recently within the Grammys, the Super Bowl, just all over the place. How important is it to bring these issues up for the people, the common people, to kind of hear about, understand, and learn more about?
I think it's very important, but here in the legislature, and we do deal with multiple issues. I think our district attorneys, though, across the state of Pennsylvania have started making this a hot item where we should start pushing and looking at it a little bit closer.
And if I could just say, and I appreciate Cheryl saying no more, no more. If you watched the Super Bowl, you saw the No More campaign. So we have the NFL supporting us corporately to produce those kinds of campaigns so that more people will be aware of their responsibility to step up and get involved and prevent rape, sexual assault, and domestic violence. So I think we're real fortunate when we have these cases that we do have our legislators and some of our corporate partners step up and say we're going to do what we can to raise the awareness so that we can change the culture in our communities and begin to prevent sexual assault.
If I could just one thing I wanted to add to that as well, the CNN story that I cited as my inspiration for attacking my part of this law, the crux of that story was a woman who was victimized by this loophole, not in Pennsylvania, in another state, but she was brave enough to come forward and say, this is my story, and to try to fight the stigma that surrounds victims of rape or other sexual assaults. I think it's really incumbent upon us as legislators and any public official to tell our story. I'm not speaking personally. I've not been a victim of sexual assault, but I know at least 2 House members who have, and who have very publicly discussed their struggles, and who have then used their struggles in order to move forward on better legislation. I think the best thing all of us can do is tell our personal stories and use this podium as a way of fighting the unfortunate stigma that surrounds victims of rape or sexual assault or any number of issues.
Anyone else? Thank you again. We appreciate all the help on this.
Thank you.